This conference will now be recorded.
So we called that to order. And that reminds me, for any guests who are attending and not familiar with it, our meetings are recorded. It is not like Mono Council where it is live broadcast, but it is recorded so that residents after the fact can go on the town website and that. So I just say that so you know you're being recorded. Item number 2 on our agenda, emergency exits. Since we're doing this virtually, here everybody knows where they're sitting and where their exit is. So if you got a problem, go running towards it, please. For the committee members, point number 3 on the agenda, any conflicts of pecuniary interest, you can declare them now or at any other point during the meeting. So that's that. Our first item here, which is number 4 on the agenda, appointment of a secretary treasurer. I'm going to read this. Thanks to one of our new members, Eric. He pointed out that we've been a little bit remiss about this. So I'm going to read this so that it is in the record. And it's this section 44-8 of the Planning Act states, the committee shall appoint a secretary treasurer who may be a member of the committee and may engage such employees and consultants as is considered expedient within the limits of the money appropriated for the purpose. That's the Planning Act, and that's what we're governed by. The town of Mono has a policy, but given that the Committee of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial committee, I agree with Eric that we should do this according to the Planning Act. So with that, we need to appoint a secretary treasurer. And do we have someone who will move that appointment, please?
I'll certainly nominate Susan Pottle as the secretary treasurer of our committee.
Okay, and is that for the term of this committee, Eric?
It's for the term of the committee, yes.
Okay, thank you. We should put that in. Dave, I'm going to
second that.
Thank you. And all in favor of that, or nobody objects to that? Everybody in favor? So with that, Susan, I'm not sure that that's congratulations. And as I always joke, and condolences. But Susan, you've been doing this job all along anyhow. Now it's official. And David Trotman, you got a demotion there. So at any rate, thank you all. Thank you for doing that. I'm glad it is now official with that. Next item here, and I've written it in, to approve our agenda. Do I have someone who will move to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting, which is Committee of Adjustment 05-2023?
I'll move to approve it as so amended now, Bob, by you with the addition of this item.
This item, and also I'm going to, after we approve the minutes of the last ones, I'm going to also add a public question period item there.
You got to do that before I move to agree.
Okay, okay. So take that back. What you said.
Take it back.
So amending it with approving the agenda and a public question period. So moving as amended.
So moved as amended.
Thank you. And Eric, please. Will you second that? I'm sorry, Dave. Dave. Sorry, it was Eric that moved it. I'm getting confused. Dave seconding that. Any objections to that? And seeing none, that is passed. Moving on to point number 5. I'm sorry, I got to take my glasses on and off. I've got a cataract in the right eye, which is going to be taken care of this month. So we have we have minutes of 2 meetings. So let's take them in order. So we have Committee of Adjustment 03-2023, which was Thursday, March 30th. Any questions, comments, corrections from the members?
They look fine to me. I'll move to approve those. That
Thank
agenda
you.
and
Dave, please, can you second that? Thank you. Any objections to that? Seeing none, we're going to move along then to the next one, which is Committee of Adjustment 04 of 2023, which was Friday, April 14th. Those minutes, any corrections, questions, comments, or whatever? So, Dave, how would you like to move that we approve this one?
Or we'll switch it up with Eric.
Yeah, please.
I like the pattern.
Oh,
Stay with our pattern. I'm going to move.
Sorry.
I move to approve those minutes.
All right, Eric moved to approve it. I didn't mean to disrespect you, Eric. We're all doing a great job here. And so Dave, that falls on you to second it, please.
Or why not?
Thank you. You know what? I as the chair, I can move and second things too, but I don't need to doing a great job. So with that, we're through that. Now the as added public question period. So anybody who's attending here, whether by phone or Marcy, you're online, you will have an opportunity if you want to speak to the application later on in the meeting. But have you got any other questions for public question period? No, thank you. And is there anybody else? Can't know if somebody's on with a phone or whatever. Anyone else with a public question period question? And seeing none, we're going to move through that. Now we're in a unique situation because as advertised, the application that we're going to be dealing with tonight is scheduled to start at 7:15. And it is not that yet. I once almost got into trouble by starting an application discussion before the advertised time. And somebody politely corrected me and said, Bob, you can't do that. So we got here about 7 minutes that we can put in some time. And that before it gets to 7:15.
Hey, Bob.
So, sorry?
Hey, Bob, I can take up 30 seconds. I wanted to thank Susan for shooting out that humongous binder.
Yes.
And all the printing she had done. That was excellent.
Susan
I'm glad
Sorry.
you got it, Dave, and I'm sure you liked my wrapping effort.
Yeah.
Susan,
That was
I always
anti-privacy
do
wrapping.
this. I say this at the end. Yeah, Dave, thank you for that. Yeah, Susan does a wonderful job. David Trotman does as well. While we're on the subject of that, so this is something that I was going to bring up under other business, but let's do an easy one here first. I'm going to switch to number 7, other business. We can do that. A, meeting format discussion, whether virtual and in person. I did want to discuss this with the committee because I in consultation with David Trotman and with Susan, I pretty much made the decision to have this meeting virtual. But we're a committee and we're not a dictatorship. So I wanted to discuss this with the other members, and that as I see it, there's no reason. I mean, if there's something, say we had several applications or there was something that was contentious, very contentious, then I think we would insist on having it in person. But with something like this one item, and I don't know how contentious it is, and that I thought that we could deal with this online. So my thought on this is that two things that would determine if we have it online would be one or two applications only, and second one being not hugely contentious. That's my thought on it. But Dave and Eric, I want to hear your feelings on this, because I'd rather not make that decision myself in the future. I'm happy to, but we are a
I think
committee,
that
and
criteria is pretty straightforward, as long as we got advance notice, but the meeting agenda has to be locked down one week prior, correct?
yes.
So as long as that decision was published a week prior, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Eric, what are your thoughts, please?
I mean, it can be very difficult to anticipate whether a meeting is going to be contentious or not. You can get a pretty good sense, and you, Bob, have been doing it for long enough to maybe have a better sense than I would. But I'm completely open. I don't mind either format for meetings.
Yeah.
But I do agree that if you anticipate it's going to be contentious, it's better to be in person.
I agree with you completely. Absolutely. Yeah. If we thought that as the last planning committee meeting, where we filled the town hall, the council chambers, as at the time I wasn't the chair of the planning committee, but I pushed and insisted that needed to be in person. There was no way that kind of meeting could have been virtual. If there's if and we can we can talk about this. If there's any chance that there's going to be something very contentious and a lot of people that want to speak to it, then I agree completely. Absolutely, we'd have that in person, even if there was only one item.
Yeah, that's.
So does that, are we on the same page there, Dave, please?
That works.
Okay. Now, I don't want to get into these other two things that are on there, because we've only got a couple of minutes left here. So, Susan, once again, you were expecting Jerry at this meeting?
Yes, yeah, I think that he was gonna join us, and then I did get that message from Corinne that she was just running late, so I don't know if she'll be able to pop on at some point.
Okay. Well, we'll see. We do for the public attending here. We have 5 members on the committee. A quorum then is 3, and you're looking at us. So,
One thing just for my minutes taking, Marcy, could I have your name, please? You can hear me,
Marcy, turn on your mic.
Yes,
There you
hi.
go.
I'm Marcy Lippman, MarciLippman, and I'll give you my address.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's 487-280 30 Side Road, Mono.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Marcy. Marcy, I'm sure that we've met sometime in the past. So
Okay. I've been around, Bob.
I recognize your name. Did you not have you had a business? Yes.
Yes, I did a long time ago, Bob.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
my wife is Sheila Duncan, and she knows your name. And
of course. Yeah.
Sheila has finally retired from both newspapers and the town of Orangeville. So,
okay. Well, that's good.
yeah. All right.
Yes.
Enough of. Sorry,
Okay.
but I just wanted to say hello.
Hello.
Enough of reminiscing. I see that it is 7:15.
Okay.
So now we can officially start the main business of our meeting here tonight. And this is application number B as in Bob 01-23. Applicants, I am going to mispronounce your names. I apologize. Dave Trotman or Susan, can you pronounce these names better than me?
I can do that better than anyone else if you'd like.
Sorry?
Suleiman and Hussein.
Saad Hussein
last
and
names.
Mahabat Suleiman.
I'll let the applicant say.
Thank you. Thank you. You're going to do a better job pronouncing your names than myself for that. And this is care of Deborah Alexander, which is Alexander Planning Incorporated. So the subject property is 755575 and 755557, second line EHS of Mono. Official plan, it is in the Escarpment Natural Area. Zoning is Niagara Escarpment Commission, NEC control. So the purpose, I'll read from the agenda here. Consent application to permit a lot line adjustment to separate agricultural from non-agricultural uses on the properties and improve access for agricultural purposes. It says here, no new lot will be created. A 10.19 hectare portion of 755557 second line is proposed to be conveyed to 755575 second line to form a 13.43 hectare property. And the 755557 second line, part 2 and 3 will be reduced from 28.36 hectares to 17.17 hectares. So that's the introduction. As we always do, the next is that our Director of Planning, David Trotman, is going to say a few words about the application. Then we're going to have the applicant say a few words. Then the committee members. Corinne, welcome. We're just introducing this. So David Trotman, then the applicant, then committee members will ask questions, and then Marcy, finally we're going to get to you. You will have an opportunity for comments, questions, and whatever. So you'll get your chance. There's no problem with that. So with that, I'm going to shut up. Difficult for me to do. I was in sales for over 40 years. And turn it over to Dave Trotman, please.
Thanks, Chair Bob. Thanks so much. This is for a consent application under Section 50 of the Planning Act, but it's for lot boundary adjustment, which means no new lots being created. So a portion of the larger parcel, which is the address, I'm going to just say ending in 57, because the other digits are the same, would be conveyed to the smaller parcel, 3 hectares and change, ending in 75, and add about 10 and a bit hectares to it, which is predominantly the agricultural portion of the former parcel. I cited the larger parcel. This, as you've noted, Chair Bob, is in the Niagara Escarpment Plan area. A good portion is escarpment natural, the watercourse lands, Taba Bank, the woodlands, and of course the rest is rural, which comprises a good portion of the agricultural portion of that larger lot. We did circulate this application, of course. It went to area folks within about 60 plus meters. That's a requirement under Section 53. Gave public notice, of course, under 53.5. We put it on our website, and there's a signboard posted on the property as well. So it's meeting and met all the notice requirements. And I see that Marcy's online here. I wasn't sure if I was expecting comments from you at all, Marcy, but that you're online is good enough for your sake. And I'm sure if you have any comments, you will speak to those later today. The other thing I'll say before I wrap up my summary is that Deborah Alexander, who's the planning consultant for the applicants, the owners, I think does have a PowerPoint presentation. I think it's pretty much a synthesis of her planning justification report, but nevertheless, I think she wants to just bring forward that PowerPoint presentation after I speak, I'm sure. We had comments from the Niagara Escarpment Commission. I think they were dated May 9th, as I recall. Excuse me, no, last year, August of 2022. They don't require any development permit application as part of their review process under the Niagara Escarpment Development Control Act. So they're fine with this. They recognize there's a lot boundary adjustment. We also got comments from our Conservation Authority, which jurisdictionally is the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, and they had a letter dated May 18th, I believe it was, in which they cited no objection, but they're wanting to see the configuration of any severed parcel more specifically reflect the agricultural portion. And in that letter of May 18th, they did illustrate the lot line severance line that they're hoping committee will take consideration of. And I've noted that as well as my recommendation, or one of the conditions of recommendation in this report. And the third comments were from our good Public Works Department. I think they were May 19th. And in there simply cited the requirement for the applicant to fulfill and comply with Town of Mono Public Works entrance policy requirements, applications thereto, and any review and or approval that may be gotten or had by Mono Public Works. That's really the synthesis of it. I've itemized some pretty standard conditions in the recommendation. The only caveat, as I've noted, is I'm recommending approval, by the way, of this lot boundary adjustment, but I have noted in there that maybe it should be subject to the request of the Conservation Authority per their comments, written comments of May 18th. The only other thing I would mention is that when we do a lot boundary adjustment in Mono, not all municipalities do this, Mono does, and that is we have our solicitor undertake a common ownership agreement. Now, this thing is not a 100-page document by any measure. They're not that thick, but it is an agreement nevertheless, and it ensures watertight merging of the parcel. In this case, it would have to anyway, that it has no direct frontage, but that's the way Mono does things, and so I've noted that as well in condition 5. The only other thing I've mentioned, of course, is that with respect to Mono Public Works, I've noted condition 4, which reiterates the conditions or requests through his comments that he's made, which I just alluded to. That's really it in a nutshell. I don't have much more to say, and that's basically a synthesis of my report that committee has.
All right, very good. Thank you, David. With that, Deborah, we're going to turn it over to you yourself and the excuse me, the applicant. So the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Deb Alexander. I'm with Alexander Planning, and I represent the owners of these properties. I do have a short presentation and just a PowerPoint that shows kind of how those parcels look now and how they're going to look later. If I did send it over to David and Susan, if one of them could bring it up and share the screen, I would really appreciate it. Uh-oh, you got my dogs.
I just made you presenter, Deb, but I can, is that okay, or do you want me to bring it up?
If you can bring it up, that's better for me because I've got 3 screens here and I don't know where it's gonna land.
Okay, just give me 1 moment.
Okay, thanks. I'm sorry about that, Susan. I should have warned you. My apologies.
No worries. I've got it. Just a sec. I should have had it open.
Sorry.
I've got to take back presentation now. Just 1 second to figure it out.
You love technology. Doesn't it make life so much easier?
Here we go. So I'm the presenter. Can you see my screen? No.
No,
Yeah.
Hang on.
it said you were the presenter.
Can you see my screen now?
No,
Oh, hang on. Okay. You're still seeing me and not my.
Correct.
Here we go.
There we go.
there we go. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Susan.
There you go.
Okay.
That's it.
So I'm representing the owner of both of these properties. They're both owned by the same family. So if we could switch to the next screen, please, Susan.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so this property is located on the east side of Second Line East. It's just a little bit southwest of Violet Hill. This proposal, as has been mentioned, is a lot line adjustment. It's intended to sever the agricultural portion of the larger south parcel and convey it to the smaller northern parcel to consolidate those agricultural holdings. The next slide, please, Susan. So the parcel in the northwest corner, we're going to call it 75, is shown in purple. It has a lot area about 3 hectares. That one's vacant. The peach parcel, we're calling it 57, is one land holding. Even though there's a line in the middle of it, it's actually one parcel, and it's got an area of about 28 hectares. So this peach parcel contains the existing house, the accessory structures, all of the woodlands. That's all proposed to remain. But I want to note that the agricultural parts are contained on what you can see here as part 2. So if we can get the next slide up, Susan, please. Okay, so this one shows us the air photo so you can see what's going on the ground. The northwest parcel, which is A, and the lands to the east of it are all agricultural. The south parcels, B and D, they're combined as one holding. That's wooded, it contains the house. This parcel is used for the residential purposes, but there is no access. Because there's a big valley here, there's no access from B and D to those agricultural lands on C. So for that reason, the owners are proposing to sever C away and give it to A, like convey it to A, so that we've got one large agricultural holding that can all be accessed easily through parcel A. So this is going to have the effect of consolidating all those agricultural lands into one holding. So next slide, please, Susan. So the illustration on the left is showing us what the existing parcel fabric looks like overlaid onto the air photo. It shows the lot lines as they exist today. The illustration on the right is what everything will look like when we consider what all the parcels will look like if this consent goes through. So the underlying air photo again shows that we're consolidating all those agricultural portions, and the northwest parcel is going to be enlarged to about 13 hectares, and the south parcel is going to be reduced to about 18 hectares. It's going to have all of the majority of the woodlands and the residential uses, and the north parcel is going to be all the agricultural lands. So we did review the comments that David mentioned from the Conservation Authority. They did request the proposed severance line be adjusted slightly to more closely follow those natural features on the property. And the owners have agreed to that. So that line is going to be adjusted when we finalize the reference plan if this consent is approved tonight. So the lands are zoned Niagara Escarpment Development Control Area. They did advise they had no objections to this proposed lot line adjustment. So the sum total is that this consent will serve to consolidate the agricultural portions of the properties into one land holding and make it easier to access them. And for that reason, I think it's appropriate for the approval of the committee. It does not create any new lots. So I'm pleased to answer any questions which the committee or members of the public might have, and thank you very much for your time.
All right, very good. Thank you. So at this point in time, it's a time for committee members to ask questions and comments. Eric, I think you were first online, so I'm going to start with you, please.
I don't have any questions with respect to the actual proposed lot line. I assume, though, from these, the slide that's still on the screen, that the green parcel is going to be enlarged a bit to satisfy Nottawasaga Valley. Where is that line going to move to satisfy Nottawasaga?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that line will be adjusted. So when I look at my screen, I've got a reddish color on the north and a blue color on the south. So that red portion is going to be made just a little bit smaller because we're going to see what that pointer is, where Susan's got her pointer.
Yeah.
That line's going to shift east a little bit and capture those woodlands and keep those as being part of the blue part. So part of that southern property. And that line, based on the mapping that Nottawasaga Valley sent me, that line's going to roughly follow the valley. Like there's a ridge there, and they're going to follow that line.
All right, and I have one question for Dave. What is the common ownership agreement that you want here in your condition 5?
Dave
So the
Trotman.
common ownership agreement materialized some years ago. Yes, I'm speaking. Thanks, Bob.
Do
you hear me?
We can now, yeah.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. It materialized some years ago before I arrived in Mono because of a glitch. I guess, how can I say it? As my understanding is that there was a new law, there was a lot boundary adjustment application. This goes back some years ago, apparently. And I guess the lot boundary was such that it could have stood on its own as a new lot. It had frontage, as many do before they get merged with the abutting parcel. Well, as it turned out, the lot somehow did not get merged and ended up for sale as a new lot, a third lot in that instance, retained lot, lot it was to merge to. Never happened. So with the town solicitor's input, they came up with a common ownership agreement as a legal device to ensure that is a watertight undertaking. It's the first I've used of it in Barrie and elsewhere I've worked. We haven't done that. We simply required a merger of a piece of land through lot boundary to actually merge as a condition in any recommendation, and that it be fulfilled and cleared as a condition of consent. So it goes a step further here, and that's what it's about. Again, it's not an agreement that is as thick as the Holy Bible. It's only a few pages long, but it's an agreement legal nevertheless, and that's what the town has always relied on with lot boundary adjustments, to have a common ownership agreement that it commonly begets ownership with its merged parcel as it's supposed to do. So that's my summation of what that's about, Eric.
I have no other
and
questions.
the other point, if I may just add, that in the comments from the Conservation Authority, which on the town's web link, the active planning applications, excuse me, the Conservation Authority on page 2 of their 3-page letter did show their preferred delineation line, and it is, as Deb Alexander has indicated, it's less of an acute angle across the woodlands, mirroring the top of bank, and a more of a slanted angle. It includes a little bit of the woodlands, but not as much for the piece to be severed and merged. That's what the Conservation Authority has requested. It's a pretty modest request in my view, and based on what Deb has explained, the applicants are aware of that and amenable. That's all I have, unless I have more questions to be asked.
Eric?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Thank you. Dave Carbert, please.
No, Eric covered the one question I had, but I had a second question. Dave, what you've got on item 2, to payment of outstanding municipal taxes. So I gather there's going to be a credit going to the green property, and red properties obviously going to be paying for more land. It's been consolidated here. What's the
So this,
outstanding part? Or are you making reference to the coming tax year?
This is the template condition, David. So it simply means that as status quo situation exists, if there's any outstanding fees or taxes to be owed, you know, the good committee ought not to give approval until, well, as a condition of, shall I say, any approval of a current application. That's standard across the board, whether it's with Committee of Adjustment or even under the Planning Act. It simply means to say, you know, if you have an outstanding money owing on, particularly property tax would be the most usual one, that those get paid up in full as a condition of consent, or any other application for that matter under the Planning Act. But yeah, going forward, if the application succeeds and is approved, then MPAC they get advised of this after the certificate is registered, and they will then make an assessment on the value based on the merged lot and the retained lot.
Covered my two questions. Thank you.
Okay. Dave, Carbert, anything else?
Nope.
No, thank you. Corinne, please.
Yeah, thank you. Question of clarity for David Trotman, actually. I know some of the conditions that are talked about have to do with the driveway access and it being residential access. Is there a major difference between a farm access versus residential access, and or is there any other stipulation that they would need to distinguish between the two?
The Town of Mono Public Works has policy regarding entranceway access onto public mono roadways. Now, you got me a bit of a loss because I'm not sure about how Mono Public Works, excuse me, handles agricultural or dedicated agricultural entranceways. I'm not sure if they actually are required to advise Mono Public Works or not. They would, of course, if there was a culvert requirement and a municipal works order required to put that culvert in. It may be just an acknowledgement to Public Works for agricultural access, but if it has any residential character at all, then it's residential, and it must meet the Mono Public Works residential criteria, which is an application, a review, and then a consideration of approval. And that's really all that's condition number 4 does. It simply says that whatever new entranceways are going to be contemplated through as a result of this application, if approved, that they undertake submitting that application for entranceway to Mono Public Works. So the director can look at it and consider it. Yep.
Perfect. No, thank you. And I have no other questions and certainly would support the application as it stands.
Very good. Thank you, Corinne. Last, myself, I think all the really good questions have already been asked and answered. I've got no problem with this, and as long as, and I know that the applicant has agreed to the NEC's adjustment of the line on page 2 here of their letter and that. So with that, I'm going to, that's all the comments that I have. At this point then, opening it to the public. Marcy, it's your turn. Unmute your mic, please. Questions and comments?
I thought we were going to hear from Hussein first.
Sorry?
I thought we were going to hear from Hussein.
Well, we heard from Deborah, who is his representative. Do you have a question for him?
Well, I have some concerns, which I have lived here on this property for 27 years, since 1995. So I know Terry Callahan owned the property prior to Hussein, and also he severed that piece of land of 8 acres or 7 acres, which is now up in part of this portion of land that we're talking about. He sold it to a young fellow, and then the Russians, I'm sorry, we call them the Russians, but they bought Hussein's property prior to Hussein. They bought it from Terry Callahan. And so they went to this young man who had purchased this 7 or 8 acres, and they offered him twice as much money. And so they bought it. And I don't remember how it became one parcel then, because it was 2 separate parcels, but I guess Hussein bought both the parcels at the time that he bought his property, because I know that it was a separate parcel. So in any case, he owns the whole thing now. My concern is that my field to the north of this picture has been farmed forever, and it was, I don't know, about 35 acres, including the portion that belongs to Hussein. And it has been farmed forever. And I'm an agricultural person, and I like to see the farmland in Mono being farmed. What can I say? We have a shortage of farmland. I've made a deal with the farmer to plant hay so that there is food, at least for animals, because I asked him not to plant soy because it required too much organic material. So, and I didn't want the organic material, so he agreed to plant hay, which will feed animals. It'll feed cattle, it'll feed horses. Last year, or 2 years ago, Ahmed, I don't know who Ahmed is, but maybe it's Hussein's son, came to me and we talked about possibly him using that land to grow roses. He had an idea about growing roses. I said, well, roses aren't really going to grow. You're going to have to build greenhouses. Then I took Ahmed to visit a farmer who had greenhouses to show him what greenhouses were. And then out of the blue, where that land had been farmed by a farmer who, the entrance to that land is through my land. So access to that portion of agriculture land, which we're talking about now, has been farmed along with the portion of my field. So it's always been farmed together, and the entrance to it is off the 30 side road from my property. In order for that land to be farmed, so in any case, it's been farmed for years. And last year, Ahmed said, no, we don't want our portion of the land to be farmed at all. And then it's just been left. So the farmer said to me, I'm not coming to farm your land because it's too small a portion. It's not worth it. They needed a larger piece of land to make it worth their while to come and farm it. In the meanwhile, that piece of land that's you can see there, that's the part that's being attached to the 8 acres, right now is sitting, it's weeds. It's all weeds. And what I have growing, which is hay, the weeds are blowing over into my field. Now, I don't know if there's an ordinance or a rule or anything about growing weeds in Mono. But basically, right now, there's about however many acres that is, which could be 15 or something, of weeds growing. And it's upsetting to me just that they left that agricultural land, that it could have been farmed, it should have been farmed. And they would have, you know, I made a deal with a new farmer and he's going to come in, he's happy to go in there and farm it and pay them for it, okay? Anyway, right now it's sitting in weeds. It's upsetting to me because it was hard for me to find a farmer who would even come in and farm less land. In any case, I'm concerned because I don't know what his intentions are for separating, for creating a larger piece of land. Obviously, the intentions would be to sell it. And listen, I'm happy if he wants to turn it into agricultural, sell it, and I mean, it's not up to him what he does with it. But I would prefer to see this land today in agriculture because we need all the agricultural land we can possibly get. We're doing everything we can for, to keep our farmland. And right now it's not being used as farmland. So that's my objection. And my other objection, of course, would be like, which is something that I can't anticipate, whatever's going to happen in the future is, I get a little nervous. I don't want a great big house somewhere, somebody puts a big driveway in and it's in the middle of my field or something, in the middle of the field, which is contiguous with my field. So I get a little bit nervous about what his intentions are and that this field will no longer be in agriculture. So that's what I have to say.
No, very, very good, Marcy. Thank you. Thank you for your input on that. I appreciate your concerns. If I hear you correct, you want this land farmed.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm a regenerative agriculture person. I'm on the Dufferin Farm Tour Committee. I have a lot to do with agriculture. I put together the local food map for Dufferin County. I am very involved with farmers, and we need every bit of farmland that we can get. And to see this left as weeds, it's very upsetting to me. And going forward until it's sold or until whatever, I would just like to suggest that perhaps it can be farmed in the meanwhile until something else happens with it. That's all.
Very good. Thank you, Marcy. Deb Alexander or Mr. Hussein, do you have any comments about what Marcy has just said? The application here makes it clear that you want to combine it so that it can be farmed. Deb?
Yes, Mr. Chair. My understanding is that the intent is to continue farming the parcels and the intent was to consolidate them and provide for access. I don't know whether Ahmad wants to add something to that or not. I'll turn over to him.
Thank you, Deborah. Hi, Marcy. Marcy,
Hi.
how are you?
I'm fine, thank you, but I'm upset about the weeds, that's all.
I completely understand. Marcy, the only reason the land hasn't been farmed in the last year because we had an agreement with the gentleman who was farming the land, but he wouldn't deliver on his end. If you have someone in you to farm the land, please.
I do, and I've come and knocked on your door a few times and nobody's home because I wanted to say I have a new farmer and be happy to farm it.
You have my email and you have my phone. You have my email and my phone number. You can always call me or send me an email and I'll get back to you. But yes, if you have a farmer to farm the land, please go ahead. You have my permission, and we can meet up and talk about this. No problem.
That would be great. That'd be great.
I would love for the land to be farmed instead of like left growing weeds and all of that. Yes.
I didn't know what the issue was, but now I know and it's clear. And okay, we'll continue this conversation. Thank you.
No problem.
Sorry, Mr. Hussein, anything else? No.
No, not at all. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, good neighbors can work things out. So with that,
I'm happy I came to this meeting just to have this conversation. Yeah. You're right. Well, okay.
And thank you for taking the time, Marcy. It's a beautiful night. You'd probably rather be outside having a glass of wine than doing this. But it's important.
Later. Don't worry. Yeah.
It is always for me. It's always important that residents have an opportunity to express their feelings and opinions. And thank you for being part of that process. So
thank you.
With that, you're welcome. Thank you. With that, we now close public meeting part of this. So no more comments from the applicant or whatever. Now it's time for the committee to discuss what we've heard and make a decision. So with that, I'll throw it open to members of the committee. your suggestions?
I'd like to bring a motion forward, Bob, that we approve this this application,
Subject to the conditions?
subject to the kitchen, yes, that are outlined, and with the NEC changes to the boundary lines.
Very good. So we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a seconder? Eric or Dave? Dave, you're seconding that?
Correct.
Say again, please.
I'm seconding that motion.
Thank you. Vote, I'll call the, Eric, any other comments?
No, I'm in favor of the motion. to
Well,
approve.
given that we've got a mover and a seconder and you're in favor of it, so am I. So with that, the vote is passed unanimously to approve it, subject to the conditions, and that Mr. Hussein and Deb, you know, you'll work all of these things out through Town of Mono Planning Department. You
Yes,
know
we
how
will.
it all works. So,
I think Mr. Hussein has a question. His hand's up.
oh, okay.
Oh, no, sorry, that was from earlier.
Uh,
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, very good. With that, the application is approved. Dave Trotman, any other comments on this? Dave Trotman?
Here I am. Thank you, Chair Bob. No, I appreciate the dialogue. Marcy, I'm glad you showed up and made some comments, and I'm glad you've come to a workable solution with Mr. Hussein, the applicant. That's what this is partly all about, to make those remedies. And I think it's resolvable, and it looks like you've got some common ground moving forward. And I agree. I think if it's agricultural, you know, the agricultural portion is arable, and it makes good sense to keep it arable and productive. Absolutely. This lot boundary application notwithstanding. And I'd like to thank Debbie for her application. She put a very good application together, including the PJR planning justification report. So always very useful and helpful in these sorts of applications. So kudos to you, Debbie, for that as well. And glad that Susan is with us. You were able to make it. I think that's also good to say. I just have one comment as part of other business, Chair, and that's it.
Well, David, let me, I'll get to that in a second. With that, the public meeting portion of this meeting is over. So Marcy, Deb, Mr. Hussein, you're welcome to hang around. But Marcy, maybe you do want to get outside with that glass of wine and Deb and whatever. So, but you are welcome to hang around and see how the Town of Mono Committee of Adjustment works. But with that, have a good evening.
All right. Thank you.
Good
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Okay,
Thanks,
so David, can I go through the ones that are on, the other ones that are on here, and then ask you for whatever it was you wanted to talk about? Can't
I
hear
just have
you.
one update of information on. Sorry, I just have one piece of updated information on what is Bill 97. I'll just be quickly explaining what it's about.
David, let me get to that in a minute, please. Okay.
Sure.
We have two other things that are on here. And I've got a third. Committee member signatures. Eric has brought this up as something that we do need to talk about. Susan, who was it? Eric, did you put this on the agenda or ask for it to be on the agenda?
Yeah, more or less in a discussion with Susan. It was Susan's idea. I think it's an excellent idea to put it on the agenda. So I don't think it needs to be a resolution, but it needs to be a discussion by the committee.
So that we're clear about this, when we used to meet in person, there was always a package that was given to the chair, and there were two resolutions, one that approved the application, one that denied it. And at the end of that, whichever one we settled on, then it got, that piece of paper got passed around and everybody signed it. That all changed with what we're doing here now, this online stuff. So Eric's brought up the concern, and I think it's a legitimate one about how do we get digital signatures on these things.
Well, let me just walk through what I think is a workable solution here. I mean, first of all, the Planning Act requires there to be a decision, and this is a document that's separate from minutes. And the Planning Act actually sets out in relatively loose terms what the components of a decision are. But one of those components is a signature. And again, as Bob noted, prior to the pandemic and virtual meetings, that was relatively easy to do. Everybody was in the room. But it was still possibly problematic in the sense that there could have been discussions at the meeting which needed to be incorporated in the decision that you couldn't have done if you drafted your decision in advance of the meeting. So what I would suggest is that we can adopt some procedure for electronic signatures. If Susan were to, as our secretary, were to draft a decision following the meeting and circulate that to all the members, or at least the members who have voted in favor of that motion, because they're the only ones who are required to sign it, then the member who wants to append a signature to it can just send an email back saying, you can take this email as my signature or my authority, and then in a final draft of the minutes, Susan can note that there's, under the approving members, just a note that it was digitally signed or electronically signed. There is a 10-day limit too following the meetings. These decisions have to be finalized within 10 days of the meeting. So if we just exchange emails, I think that satisfies the requirement of the Planning Act to have a signature. The Electronic Commerce Act allows digital signatures or electronic signatures, and it defines it only as electronic information, whatever that means. I don't see any reason why, and I would certainly be content as a member to have an email responding to Susan as the secretary saying, yes, I'm approving that decision.
Question to Susan, it's Dan Carver speaking. Do you have DocuSign license?
Sorry.
I can answer that for you. I think the answer is no. I don't believe any department does use DocuSign. Not sure if Thomson Rogers, our solicitor, uses it elsewhere with other municipalities, but I think I agree. That's an option, is DocuSign.
DocuSign is the simplest because it, as a document, records each signature. It's already deemed legally acceptable. And this way it's not putting Susan in the middle of tracking a whack of emails, which could be missed out of spam or anything else. So anyways, maybe that's a possibility.
Can I suggest
that it's pretty nominal on an annual basis, so it's something we could look at, in fact. Yeah.
Dave Trotman, thank you. That was exactly what I was going to suggest. These virtual meetings aren't going to go away. I think we're going to have a combination of in-person and virtual ones. So I agree with Eric completely, is that this is something that needs to be settled on and decided, whether you've got to get the clerk involved or whoever, as a committee, can we agree that we're going to give that to Susan as the secretary treasurer as a project and come up with a solution?
You got 10 days, Susan.
Yeah, I will get that notice out, the notice of decision out, hopefully Friday, and if not, yeah, next week. But in the meantime, I'll see if we can get something in place. But if not, we might have to go with Eric's suggestion for this one, where I get you all to agree to the draft. In the past, we've been just sending out the notice of decision because there hasn't been any change. It's been a very simple, it's approval and these are the conditions, and it's been what we've agreed to in the meeting. But yeah, if there's been any changes or whatnot to the conditions during the meeting, then that is something that might need to be reviewed a little bit more closely. But I can definitely send out the draft and look into DocuSign.
Susan, I was going to agree with you completely for this application, and given the time frame that Eric reminds us of. Thank you, Eric. On this one, let's send it out as an email and have everybody just say, I agree to this, and send it back. But in the the longer term thing is get our clerk to or whoever to look into something. The issue with this is Committee of Adjustment being quasi judicial. We're not just a I shouldn't just say that because I'm the chair of the planning committee. We are not an advisory committee. So the rules are a little different. Eric, you know that better than any of us. So can we agree with this application? We'll have Susan send it out by email. We will all look at it. Corinne, I see you nodding your head. Thank you. We'll all look at it as soon as we get it and send it back saying I agree with. Are we in agreement with that, everybody?
Absolutely. It would be the onus on each individual not to hit reply all, but just reply to Susan only, just to cut down on the spam. Okay. It's the button beside the other button.
I tell you, I'm laughing. There are times when I do reply all, but with a specific reason.
If it's needed, yes.
But most of the time not. And I sit on another board and we keep telling the 19 other people on the board to not hit reply all. So, some get it and some don't. So good point. All right, so we're in agreement on that one, and we are expecting to have. I'm getting ahead of myself here. We are expecting to have a Committee of Adjustment meeting in June. So again, that would be the fourth Thursday of the month. So bear with me. June 22nd. I'll send out an email about that. But see if Susan, if we can get something prior to that meeting, great. And that, so we can discuss that then. David Trotman, before we get to your Bill 97 one here, also on our agenda, C. So OACA conferences, which is Ontario Association of Committees of Adjustment. I put this on here because there are two conferences in the year. Susan is going to one. Susan, are you still going to Niagara Falls next week?
I am, yep, I'm going there I'll be there Monday and Tuesday, coming back on Wednesday.
Okay, so they have two conferences. One is in the summer, typically in the fall. Susan is going to that. I looked at it. You can look it up online, and those videos that Susan sent us links to is the OACA. The schedule for this meeting in Niagara Falls, I don't envy you, Susan, because you're not going to have a lot of time to see the falls. It is busy, busy, busy. And why I brought this up is because the second one is in October. It is on the airport strip there. And I wanted to talk about this. I attended one of these conferences years ago in Cobourg. It was the only time that a member of the Committee of Adjustment attended one of these meetings. And I attended 2 days there and came back and I don't know if I didn't send it out, I will send it out to everybody. I learned a lot from that. In fact, our ID card came out of that meeting, and several other things that we may or may not be doing right came out of it. So why am I bringing this up? I'm a little late. I would have liked to have gone to the Niagara Falls one. The reason being, Susan is going to be busy. She will write reports on the meetings that she attends. It's learning sessions, and that there's too much there for her to do on her own. So we do not have it in the budget, but I would like for both Susan and myself or another member of the committee to attend the 2-day conference. Where is it? Holiday Inn on near the airport, Susan, the October one?
I do remember it's near the airport, but I don't remember the exact location.
So I just you know, I don't want to spend the town's money, and quite frankly, I'm retired. I don't want to spend my time sitting in meetings either. But if we're going to be a responsible Committee of Adjustment, I think we need to educate ourselves. So I'm putting that. If we don't have any money for it, then I'm going to have to go begging the council in hand and ask them for the money. How much would it be? Maybe $1,000. Susan, you're probably already budgeted for that October one.
No, I haven't looked into the cost of that one. I don't know if it's going to be the same as the spring one. They haven't released any of the details yet on that.
Well, it's there's some details on there. It's shorter, and we don't have to. We don't. Frankly, I don't know about you, Susan, but we don't have to spend the night at an airport hotel. So, you know, the big expense is the cost of the conference, the mileage, and that. But I'm estimating about $1,000 a person. So, what does other committee members, do you think this is important or not? Because if you don't, I'll leave it alone.
I agree with you, Bob. I think it's important that we educate and bring ourselves up to date.
Okay, thank you. Dave Carbert?
Yep, I think it'd be a good idea to have a second body going there. Or we're going to burn Susan out.
Yeah.
They could probably take half of it out of the butterfly budget.
Well, when I went to the one in Coburg, it was Judy Coney who was the secretary treasurer at the time. We split it up. She went to some sessions. I went to some sessions. We never went to the same one, and that we both came back with really good information. Eric, what's your thought on this? Should I make the effort to get some money?
Yeah, well, I agree. I think it's worthwhile.
And again, I don't have to be the one that goes. If one of the rest of you want to go, geez, you're welcome to it. So my point is, somebody from the committee should go. We can decide that closer to October, but in the meantime, I'm going to approach council to get some money. Or David Trotman, in your big budget, you got an extra $1,000. I'm estimating that.
I can tell you, Bob, I did get into the budget boxing ring this year, and I had a few rounds as to how I could enhance our budget, and for all the good reasons just cited. It was a tough budget year given inflation, particularly on the cost of capital side of things, and the outcome is what it was. So yes, there's always a next year, and I will intend to do the same. I agree with everyone who's spoken. Training is absolutely upgraded training, and training is critical. And I have in the past attended the Niagara OCA conference, and it was as good, and in many respects, at least that one, better and the Provincial Planning Institute Conference of that same year. Very well supported by the legal camps community, more so even than the OPPI conference. So it was good, and they're not that exorbitant. I don't imagine the one at Airport Strip is going to be any more than the one at Niagara, and really comes down to the hotel rates. Really, the rest probably is pretty much the same.
David, you've given me the answer. I'm gonna pick up that ball. I'm going to run with it. I'm going to approach council. In fact, and I remember it very well, one of my recommendations from the Coburg conference years ago was that it should be standard that a member of the Committee of Adjustment and the Secretary Treasurer attend both of these conferences. That fell on deaf ears, but we did get ID cards. Speaking of which, did everybody get their ID card? Corinne, did you get yours in your package?
No, I had my old one though, so I was good.
Well, I had an old one too, but the date has changed on this.
Well, I haven't changed, Bob. I look just as youthful as I did 5 years ago, so we're good.
Well, I used the old picture too, but did you get a new card that says you're good until November 30th of 2027?
I don't think I did, actually. I'll have to look. I don't think I did.
Susan, you would have put that card in everybody's package.
Yeah, I think it should have been in your package. But if not, maybe look at the bottom of the envelope.
Listen,
Yeah, maybe. Oh, it is in the bottom of the envelope, Susan. I just looked and went, oh yeah, here it is.
Yeah,
I got it.
I opened my package up and the card fell on the floor. To which I said, "What the heck is Susan Pottle sending us?"
Wow, this is a nicer one than we had before too. It's a nicer one.
Okay, so that's it for the conferences stuff. David Trotman, I apologize. I do have one more thing that I want to bring up, and then you can briefly tell us about the exciting world of Bill 97. The one thing I wanted to bring up, since we're talking about packages, and that I like the printed package, everything. When I was talking with Eric about this stuff, you asked for it to be electronic, digital. I just want to make sure. I was concerned because I was sitting there with a package with about a dozen different files in it. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was getting all the same information. And that, so if you're asking for things digitally, then it does put a lot of onus on you to look through all of that stuff and that. So again, I'm not being critical. It just, I want to make sure everybody's got all the same information when we're looking at this stuff. So I leave it up to each individual. You tell Susan, if you want it printed or if digital is okay. It's possible that the day will come when everything's going to be digital, in which case, David Trotman, we're going to need a budget for everybody for printers and paper and toner. You and I have talked about this before. Dave, you're muted.
I see that as doable.
And until Town of Mono makes a decision to go completely digital, I want a printed copy. But if that day comes, then we'll fight for everybody to have a budget for paper and toner and the like. So
Bob, if you have Susan do all the printing, council's
I'm not
already
against that because
$30,000
people might want the whole.
Sorry, say again, please. You broke up.
I said, Bob, if you have Susan do all the printing, that means council's already paying for it with a house printer. What you're saving on individual printers, ink, and toner is going to pay for the OACA conference.
I agree. Yeah, good point. All right. Anyhow, that was it. I've said enough. David, quickly, Bill 97. maybe applies a little more to planning committee, but I don't know because I haven't seen it. So, David Trotman?
Well, it is going to come before planning committee on the June 15th. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. It will be the key item for the June 15th, I think it's the 15th, planning committee meeting agenda, Bill 97. I don't know if the rest of the committee members are aware of it. This is the latest bill from the provincial government to try and get more housing and a whole lot more quickly. It's a fundamental aspect of it is to merge the provincial policy statement with the growth plan. I'm not so sure that's a good idea, and I don't think that's really the solution. We need more housing, and part of the outcome of that is to open up more available raw land for development. And that up until now included rural and agricultural lands. So in fact, one of the provisions in the new, not yet approved, but the draft new provincial policy statement is to allow up to 3 lots on every agricultural parcel. Now, I haven't seen the details on minimum lot size, but in the very least, you know, you can think about, it could be as much as down to 10 acres, becomes 2 3.5 acre lots, I suppose, or something north of that. Now, why am I mentioning this now? Because on the news tonight, the Ford government has indicated that they're going to backpedal that provision, probably largely due to the outcry of OFA, the Ontario Federation of Agricultural Association, that have weighed in on the draft bill. And I haven't read it all, but they're saying if you do this, you can pretty much kiss farmland. The functionality, I would say, the functionality and feasibility and arability of main significant blocks of farmland across the province goodbye. And of course, they're very mindful of climate change and how that's going to impact possibly farmland and its irrigational feasibility and arability. So it looks as though that provision in the provincial policy statement is going to be removed, which thankfully ought to be done.
David, just one thing.
I only
For
update
committee
because
member,
it would impact committee of adjustment. So we'll see where that goes.
Well, and thank you for bringing that up. I saw exactly the same thing. Because if they put it through allowing 3 severances on each piece of agricultural land, the committee adjustment was going to, I was expecting, was going to get very busy with applications for lot severances. So now I like to be busy, but when I saw it was on the news this morning, Dave Trotman, that they're backing away from that 3 lots per property.
Yeah. So there's still other aspects of the Bill 97, which there still are other aspects of Bill 97 which could influence the activity of files coming before committee of adjustment. Never mind our planning department on the planning side, other planning side of things. So you know, the jury's still out on that. We have to see the final reading and see where that's going. But that's all I needed to say. That's thankfully going to be a redress of that initiative, and it's busy days accordingly, and it's a tough nut to crack because housing and housing affordability aren't going to be done overnight. But we do need more housing, but the focus must really be on urban areas and repurposing underutilized lands or vacant land as much as raw land. And just to finish up here, I suspect that the urban boundary settlement provisions will still be part of the bill, and that will impact abutting farmlands to those urban areas. So think of Newmarket, think of Barrie, think of Innisfil. Probably less so though Mono for that reason, because we're not a bona fide urban municipality that would have assigned growth targets that are still apparently going to be part of parcel of the new PPS, provincial policy statement.
David, refresh my feeble memory. At this point in time, on an agricultural piece of land, how many lots are allowed? 2? Residential.
So right now, correct, two rural residential lots, 2 lots, which typically become rural residential lots off of our original half lot being 100 acres.
Okay.
And there's some other tests there as well, but that's the key part of it, 2 lots.
Okay, thank you. Just, you know, it affects Committee of Adjustment. So, Eric, any questions of what David has just said, or anything else you want to talk about?
No, I'll wait until we see the final bill before I get too excited.
Yeah, no need to have a ticker attack yet. I'm joking. Dave Carbert, any questions? Anything else? We've had a good meeting here.
The actual legislation is going to go through, because other than that, it's all huff and puff right now from the government.
Yeah, thank you. Corinne, I was sorry you came in the middle. I was going to introduce you, Corinne, to Eric and Dave Carbert, Corinne Pollard, who is this your second term on the Committee of Adjustment? Remind me.
It is, yeah. It's my second term on the Committee of Adjustments. I've served on a number of Morneau boards previously, including the Police Committee Board, as well as the Heritage Committee Board, and now this year. And as I'm here late, because unfortunately, unlike Bob, I still work for a living. So I was in downtown Toronto, and trying to get out of the city is you know, impossible at best of times. So I apologize certainly for being late, but I try very hard to give as much of my time as I possibly can to our community. And so yes, Bob, to answer your question full circle, yes, this is my second term here.
Yeah, thank you. Corinne and I have one thing in common. We both ran for Mono Council and lost.
A long time ago. I fought for the farmers and I lost. So welcome to Mono changing.
Corinne was smarter than me. I think if I'm correct, you ran once and lost, and then didn't run again. Myself, you know, I don't learn very fast apparently, because I ran twice and lost before I didn't run again during the last election. So there you go, Corinne. I always think of that. You and we have that in common.
Yeah, well, it's fun, you know, it's full circle when you come back to the conversation about agricultural land, and Jerry's not here, but I have a little different view than Jerry. Obviously, I have a farm in Mono that we do farm. We do have animals. We do have agricultural land that we farm ourselves. And I very much also look at land as fit for purpose. So in other words, if you have land that is not farmable, whether it be fit for animals, fit for cropland, whatever that area is, then it needs to be fit for a purpose that's suited. And whether that be put a house on it, put a something on it, then great, it's now usable land. But yeah, to your point, I very much was, I ran more for the farmer, because I have to say there were a number of personal agricultural issues at the time that arose that I opposed. And I don't believe that people should be walked on for owning a certain, you know, percentage of property, et cetera, and that they're dictated to by a 1 acre severance off of their property because people think that animals smell, or, you know, those kind of things. And that's where Jerry and I certainly align 150%. But so that's my, you know, my 10-cent view of Mono, in that I love the diversity that we have, everything from agricultural land. I certainly work in downtown Toronto, So I get a different view on a regular basis, but also can appreciate that our township needs to grow, needs to be productive, and also has to have viability and for the long term. So that's who I am and kind of what I stand for. And no, I didn't get punched in the face twice, Bob.
Yeah. And Corinne, if John Creelman was here, you said one thing there, and John would be fast to correct when you said township. It was John. Yeah. I'm glad you're nodding.
Yeah.
It was our Mayor John Creelman that I think at least it was 25 years ago when Mono Township became the town of Mono.
Yes.
And John's always fast to point it out when somebody says Mono Township. He says it hasn't been a township for 25 years. So I remember that well. I was living here, and actually that's I could reminisce all night long. But I think we all would rather go get a. I'm gonna go get a beer and that. So. Last but not least, committee members, thank you. The good meeting went longer than I expected, but we talked about a lot of good things here tonight. We're going to get a chance to talk about more things as time goes on. I will send an email out. There is at least one application for a committee of adjustment meeting on Thursday, June 22nd. I'll send that out. We'll look at what's going on and decide whether it's going to be in person or that. Dave Carbert,
Isn't
Dave?
our next meeting on the 29th?
No, fourth Thursday.
Okay. Oh, it's a long month. Right.
You know, it is unique. We have 5 Thursdays. The fact that tomorrow, aside from being the first Thursday in June, it also happens to be my 27th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it took me 3 tries to being married to get to 27 years. But my lovely wife Sheila, if she will not look at this tape, so she won't hear what I just said. But at any rate, yes. So yeah, always it's unique. 4th Thursday of every month, planning committee, 3rd Thursday of every month. So but we will have that, and we'll sort it out. If there's any question about if there's any doubt whether it should be in person or virtual, we'll send. I'll communicate because I want to do the right thing. So that's that. Last but not least, before we adjourn, as always, thank you to Susan for your great work on all of this. Thank you to David Trotman. Job well done. Keep it up. And anything else, anybody?
Thank you.
Enjoy this great weather. Oh,
Can I?
Blues and Jazz Festival this weekend.
No, I was going to say meeting adjourned. Can I move to adjourn this meeting?
You sure can. Get out to the Blues and Jazz on the weekend. Finally, the weather's supposed to be nice all weekend long. It should be fantastic.
Us farmers are calling for rain. We hoping for some rain, but you worry about the jazz festival.
Hey, yeah. Well, there have been a lot of years where it got rained out. So
Bravo.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Have a good evening.